Welcome back, everybody. If it's your first time here, this is me building an RV-8. So on this one, I've done all the prep work to the horizontal stabilizer, and it's time to start doing final assembly. Right now I've got that rear spar and the support bars, and I'm going through and putting clecos in to hold everything in place. That blue tape you see on the back side of it is to remind me where not to put rivets, because that's where ribs are going to end up having to get clecoed later on and riveted in place and or bolted, so I don't want to go sticking rivets in there prematurely. So the plans have you mark off all of those spots, and now I've got everything sufficiently down, taking the squeezer and going through and starting to add all of those rivets. Once again, the squeezer is still working well, so we're on the love side of the love-hate relationship I have with that thing. I probably won't hate it again until I have to actually bleed it again. Hopefully that'll be a long, long time. So right now it's just all about figuring out the best angle to reach around everything and get that thing on there straight. And one thing I was having an issue with, and I had to go back and look at the plan several times, is the directions very clearly state to use the rivets that are called out for on the plans, even though they are a little bit short, which means if you try and use the go-no-go gauge after you set them, it's not really going to measure out right because they were too short to start with, or a little bit too short. I went online and looked. This is a common thing. Everybody else has run into it. And choices are you either switch to a longer rivet and set it and ignore what the plans say just out of comfort, or you do what the plans say and live with it and move on. I chose to do what the plan said, and I'm setting them to the best of my ability. So now I'm setting all the rivets on those angles up front, the splice plates, and there's a lot of rivets in that small spot. And it was going really well until I ended up getting a phone call right as the air compressor kicked on. So I went and turned the air compressor off, took my phone call, didn't think about things, and then I went right back to squeezing. And after I get done doing several rivets in a row, I realized that they look like they're starting to not set right. So instantly I start thinking the squeezer's not doing its job again, trying to figure out what's going on. Finally, I decided to go over and try and crank up the air pressure to see if I just need more pressure than what I had been using. And when I walked over there, I realized I was already down to about half of what I had been using. And then I remembered I turned the air compressor off, so easy fix. Just had to go back and re-squeeze some of those rivets a little bit more to get them set right. On these ones, the rivets are long enough that I can use that rivet gauge to give me an idea that they're set correctly. And I'm leaving those clecos in those middle holes because that's where the rib has to go later on when I finish the rest of the skeleton, and I'm just kind of working around the rest of that. Overall, this was pretty gratifying and it went really well, and I had one long major component when I was all done. Yep, that was me checking the air pressure and make sure I had it right. And now I'm adding those inboard nose ribs and main ribs right there. These are the ones I had to drill the holes in, line them up and clamp them in place and drill the holes. Now I'm trying desperately to get that squeezer in there to get the top and bottom rivets set, and even with bending the ribs out of the way gently like the directions say, I just couldn't quite get it. So in comes the clamp to help hold that rib a little bit out of the way, and then I had to use the rivet gun with the offset cup set on it and just shoot and buck those two rivets. My daughter is smarter than me. She's plugging her ears. I probably really need to start wearing some hearing protection around that. And here's the debut of my new toy. I just won that Cleco, that pneumatic Cleco tool in an eBay auction, and it just showed up. Not terribly useful for all of the Clecos because it requires air, and right now I've only got the one air hose. I probably need to get some sort of splitter if I want to keep multiple things plugged in, but for ones here and there, it's easier just to grab the pliers. But when you're doing a long run of Clecos on that skin, it makes it pretty nice. So right now I'm setting myself up for a mistake. It's fun to sit here and watch it coming. So I was supposed to rivet that middle nose rib, top and bottom, and then put the spar in, get it Clecoed in place so I could start riveting it. If you notice, just barely in frame, you can see some Clecos in that nose rib there in the middle on the bottom. I only riveted the top side, and the bottom is still being held in with Clecos. So now I'm going to go through and add Clecos to everything because I think I'm getting ready to start riveting the skin on. And then I get all the way to this side, finish adding some more Clecos. Still haven't figured it out yet. And now I'm looking in there and I'm realizing, how am I supposed to rivet those? I can't get to those rivets because there's a spar in the way now. All those Clecos got to come back out. Thankfully, I have my new toy and it made fairly short work of it. So now I've realized the error of my ways. I took the Clecos back out and I got that spar back out of the way. And now I'm bringing out the stands so I can go ahead and rivet the bottom side of that nose rib in. I went and readjusted the air pressure, and now I am shooting and bucking those rivets. And this is a skill I still have not come close to mastering, and it's going to bite me towards the end of this video. Right now, not too bad. I do make one mistake up here on this very top one that still has a Cleco on it, right there. There's nothing holding the skins together above that. I thought I could hold it in far enough and then shoot the rivet in, but didn't work. So I had to center punch, drill that rivet out, pull it out from the backside, clean the hole out, and try it again. But this time I decided to help hold the skins together, I would temporarily install that middle rib so I got something to Cleco it to pull it in tight, and that did the trick. And I was able to get it set properly. So now that nose rib is completely riveted in on the top and bottom, I can go back to where I was earlier. I decided to just go ahead and leave this thing in the stand, throw the front spar and those end ribs back in, and now I'm adding all of those Clecos back to hold it all in place. A little bit of gymnastics there to spin it around, but not near as much as what I'm going to get into in a little bit when I realize just what I got to do to get inside of that thing to start bucking rivets. So now that middle rib has to get pull riveted through the spar and to the back of the nose rib. There's no way to get in there and squeeze a rivet or shoot a rivet, so the plans call out for 3 pop rivets in there. I'm over there now just verifying that that's what I'm supposed to do and which rivets I need. Grab the pop rivet gun, my fancy new one that I got as a birthday present, which worked great for the middle one, too big to reach the outside ones. I'll figure it out here in a minute. So I give up. I go get the old trusty pull riveter, the squeeze type one. And still a very, very tight space to get down in there and get those other ones in. But I was able to finally get it in there. Just lots of fighting with it. Alright, those are in, and now I'm going on to riveting that the rest of that rib in there in the middle. And I'm all up on the bench to get in there to try and hold the bucking bar and shoot the rivets at the same time, and I think I'm doing alright. They're setting, still trying to learn how to hold both of those things dead straight to each other, and for the most part, I think I'm doing well. I'm focusing on the shop head, and here in a second, I'm going to set this last rivet, and then I'm going to stop and look at what I've done and realize I've put a couple of dents in the skin because I wasn't holding the rivet gun straight or tight or whatever. Hang my head in shame, call it a night, and I'll try again tomorrow. Nothing that a little filler and paint won't fix later on. See you guys on the next one.